tonight on a special edition of Elon Local News.
Virtual classrooms. As we near the end of the second week of online classes, we hear from students on how they are making the adjustment.
In early end, we talked to former executive president Jack Johnson after his shortened tenure as student body president.
And fostering a furry friend. The relief animal shelters are seeing as many hunker down at home.
Those stories and more.
This special edition of Elon Local News starts right now. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Elon Local News. I'm Baylor Rodman, coming to you from Marco Island, Florida.
And I'm Maeve Ashbrook, coming to you from Wichita, Kansas. Thank you so much for joining us.
North Carolina was put under a stay-at-home order this week by Governor Roy Cooper, requiring people to only leave their houses to get food or medicine. Elon also announced this week the commencement ceremony for the class of 2020 has also been postponed, but the new date for the ceremony has not yet been announced.
The online instruction period has also been extended until the rest of the semester. While some students are adjusting to the change from campus to online classes, some traveled home from across oceans, leaving their study abroad programs just months in. Our Amanda Gibson has the story.
I was so mad, so upset. There were so many emotions about being pulled out of your study abroad program.
The change from great European architecture to computer screens and PowerPoints is a new reality for many Elon students.
Processing the shock of actually coming home, I think, was the hardest part, just because you're like, did this actually happen? Was I actually abroad? Because it really doesn't feel like you were at this point.
Elon Jr. Sam Berger was in the Florence program, which was canceled almost 5 weeks ago. She says the transition to home has been challenging.
I think it was just a lot harder because it was kind of there was nothing to prepare us. We had no, I came home and I was like, what do I do with myself now? We had no school, nothing, just literally to stay at home and do nothing like what we're doing now.
Other students like junior Olivia Kalch-Thaler, who is now home from Prague, says her main focus is keeping relationships with friends made abroad.
It's pretty difficult because, like I said, a lot of the kids that I was abroad with, it wasn't through an Elon program, so I won't see most of them really ever again. And so obviously only getting to do about half time there has been really difficult. And learning, I just have no motivation to do anything anymore, just because I'm still super upset about leaving, and it's just been hard to kind of focus.
Berger is now talking about dance theory and fundamentals online with one of her Italian professors, rather than dancing in classrooms in Italy with her 3 different teachers.
So it's an interesting and new way of learning. Obviously, I wish I was dancing and moving because it's what I love to do. But with the circumstances, it's kind of hard.
The two say they are thankful Elon pulled them out and that they are being refunded portions of their program. Amanda Gibson, Elon Local News.
Elon News Network called Dean Pelton of the Global Education Center, and while they declined a video or phone interview, he says that the GEC is continuing, quote, business as usual, despite these unusual times, and remains available to assist students with re-entry and reverse culture shock while at home.
North Carolina schools across the board are closing their campuses through the end of the 2019-2020 school year, following the mass outbreak of COVID-19. Emory Eisner has more on that story.
Classrooms across North Carolina are sitting empty following the shelter-in-place order issued by NC Governor Roy Cooper. But learning at home could prove to be difficult for students from lower-income households. According to Education Week, the achievement gap is the difference in academic performance between groups of students, such as low-income and high-income families. According to Kim King, the Director of Virtual Learning and Media Services at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, transitioning to online classes which require access to technology, quote, highlights already existing inequalities. This March, the CMS Foundation's COVID-19 Relief Fund received a collective $1 million donation. The money provided students in need with 6,000 internet hotspots for 6 months. At Elon, the Center for Access and Success also gave technology to students in need. Though the center's director, Jean Radigan-Rohr, says the achievement gap remains a national issue, she says the problem is less present at Elon, and says online classes likely won't change that. Rohr says all students that contacted the center about technology needs, quote, found options to connect for their online instruction. Emory Eisner, Elon Local News.
And this story is still developing, but for more information on this and other COVID-19 related content, visit our website, elonnewsnetwork.com.
Former executive president of the Student Government Association, Jack Johnson's time in office and his senior year were cut short because of the coronavirus. I sat down with him for a very unique exit interview.
When the SGA elections took place in early March, Jack Johnson thought he had a month left to go before he was officially out of office. But now he's in the middle of his second week of online learning at his home in California, and the new SGA executive board has fully transitioned into their roles.
I've just been talking to a lot of my friends, trying to fill the time, because honestly, that's the biggest change, having so much of a time commitment to having quite literally nothing to do with his day.
Johnson says he was looking forward to seeing the school's new partnership with Uber play out during his last month in office. One of the 2 pilot programs to test the discounted rides was set to begin the weekend after spring break.
When we finally got it done, Dean Patterson actually gave me the contract in a little baggie so I could frame it. And so that's going on my wall in whatever apartment.
Johnson says the pilot program will not begin until North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper lifts the statewide stay-at-home order and classes are in session. Looking back on his time in office, Johnson says this bill was his greatest accomplishment, but he regrets not doing more student outreach, although he says he's proud of how much SGA has communicated with students over the last few weeks.
Dr. Dooley was in communication with both me, Robbie, and both of our executive boards, giving us a little bit of knowledge beforehand to make sure that if questions started hitting us, we were able to respond to them well.
And while Johnson says the abrupt end to his final semester at Elon is unfair, he urged his fellow seniors to not let the coronavirus let their best memories and moments from Elon be overshadowed.
I don't know how to feel about this. I don't think any of us know how to feel about this. Never before in the last 100 years has a class at Elon or any school had to deal with something so heart-wrenching and so final.
Johnson did say SGA is talking with administration to make sure seniors get a final ceremony to celebrate their graduation. He says he hopes an event like this will help give him the closure he needs to officially finish his time at Elon.
Because of the coronavirus pandemic, 14 states and 1 territory have pushed back their primary voting day or switched to voting entirely by mail. Most states have moved to June 2nd, making it the second largest delegate allocation day with 686 delegates up for grabs. Former Vice President Joe Biden is currently leading with more delegates than Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. Meanwhile, all of Trump's opposition have suspended their bid in the Republican primary. Co-coordinator of Elon Votes and Andrew Goodman Foundation ambassador Andrea Sheets says that this is a good time to start thinking about politics.
Look at this time and evaluate their leaders, what they're doing, and know that God forbid this ever happen again. They have a chance to say who should be the one making those decisions and what policy should be in place and things like that. I think this is a time where our government is on full display in the real and raw, and they can learn something from it.
For a full list of postponed dates and information, visit Elon Votes at elon.edu/u/Elon-votes.
After increasing pressure from Congress, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis issued a statewide stay-at-home order to slow the spread of the coronavirus. There are now, at the time of this taping, over 7,000 cases here in Florida and 87 deaths. Where I am here in Southwest Florida, as COVID-19 continues to spread, business is not as usual. Just 2 weeks ago, Marco Island, Florida was its normal piece of paradise. With season in full swing, residents and visitors were taking advantage of everything the 10,000 islands had to offer. COVID-19 was on everyone's mind, but Floridians had only seen the minimal effects. Now as we enter April, the JW Marco Island Marriott and the Hilton Marco Island Beach Resort fell from 90% capacity to just 4, with the Marriott occupying only 35 out of their 809 rooms, and the Hilton filling just 28. Here in Collier County, there are now 150 confirmed cases, and although there are just 3 here on Marco Island, the beaches, gyms, restaurants, and now all non-essential businesses have closed their doors to the public, following the governor's stay-at-home order. Luigi Carvelli is the president of Carvelli Restaurant Group, which owns 4 of the island's most famous restaurants: Da Vinci's, Oyster Society, Marco Prime, and the Snook Inn. Like all the other restaurants and small businesses on Marco, this is their busiest time of year.
Where you make the most of your money, it's the month of March. And a lot of businesses, all businesses have lost majority of it. So that, it's scary on a financial point of view. It's very, very scary.
Carvelli is making sure, whether his staffers are working or not, that they are being fed. But he also feels the importance of his company within the Marco Island community and decided to do more.
So we decided that we were going to support all of our nurses, NCH. It's been 2 weeks now that every day they get lunches from us delivered to them. The police department, and we also helping the firefighters. So that is something that is not going to change. We're going to be there for them daily, delivering and whatever support they need.
Carvelli says although they are currently able to stay afloat with residents ordering takeout from Da Vinci's and the Snook, they know not everyone can.
I hope I'm wrong, that between 10 to 20% of the restaurants are not going to be able to reopen. They won't.
So Maeve, I got to tell you, the month of March is the month that all of these businesses really bank on. It's where the most revenue definitely comes in. So restaurants, these small little mom and pop shops that are now ordered to close, they are hurting. This is the most important time of the season for them down here in Florida, and it was definitely not the season that they would have hoped for. So tell me, how are things going on in Wichita?
Well, yeah, Baylor, it's definitely not as crazy as Florida. Obviously, there's no beaches and a lot of places where people could congregate, but they have canceled a couple events. We have this big thing in June called Riverfest that they just canceled, so that was kind of a big deal. And then local businesses, especially restaurants, are still open. They're still drive-through and carry-out, and there's actually been a lot of Facebook groups and support from the community to try to get people who are either have been laid off or people still working to get them the support they need in those local businesses. So overall, I would say it's not as bad as it can be, but it's still pretty different down here.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's different across the country. Everybody is truly feeling this time of uncertainty, no matter where you go.
Elon students across the country are doing one thing, missing Elon. But one Elon senior decided to turn missing campus into money. Our Lauren Singles has the story.
I miss Elon. A common phrase heard on social media this week is now a fundraiser. Started by senior Isabella Branham, the fundraiser hopes to support Allied Churches of Alamance County, or ACAC, a food pantry and homeless shelter located just 10 minutes from campus. Originally posted on Facebook by Branham, people can purchase sweatshirts and t-shirts with the phrase, I miss Elon, with 10% of each purchase going to the shelter. Interim ACAC manager Jay Baker says that the coronavirus has affected their operations, forcing them to rearrange work schedules.
What I was concerned about is being a one-man show. If I got sick and we were all here, what would happen? So kind of trying to really be proactive and take care of that as well.
According to Baker, Allied churches wanted to continue preparing hot meals for the community, even though they could not provide dine-in services. After getting a USDA waiver authorizing them to provide takeout, finding the to-go trays was difficult. It was the community that answered their call for help.
We have created a donor list that if they have them, we call them, they immediately order them. Or if we don't have anyone at that point, then we're trying to purchase them ourselves.
Baker said despite the difficulties, he feels his shelter is prepared to deal with COVID-19. Lauren Singles, Elon Local News.
Branham was unavailable for an on-camera interview to comment about the fundraiser at this time, but if you are looking for a hot meal, ACAC will be serving lunch and dinner Mondays through Fridays.
As many Americans are forced to stay at home, many are turning to furry friends to pass the time. Our Grace Morris has more on how the recent spike in fostering and adoption rates affects one Burlington shelter.
In an uncertain time,
this is not what we're expecting at all.
When many of us don't know what's next.
It's been pretty overwhelming, all of the things that have transpired in the past 2 weeks.
The dogs and cats at the Burlington Animal Services Shelter aren't feeling the stress. Perhaps because 90% of them are currently adopted or in foster homes.
We've completely remodeled how we operate. I mean, in such a tragic situation, that's just been so warming to see how the community has stepped up to help pets.
Shelter manager Jess Arias believes that the nationwide quarantine is why adoption rates have risen.
It's a great time to have the company of a foster pet, especially if you're home alone or you've been thinking about getting a pet, but you work a lot and don't have time. So this is a great time.
Seniors Cecile Fajera and Olivia Pierce are staying at Elon and agree with Arias. Since they were both home more, it was the perfect time to foster Coco.
We fell in love with her. Yeah.
But Pierce and Fajera say having Coco makes them less stressed about what's happening in the rest of the world.
I think it just kind of distracts us in a way because we take her out to walk, we play with her. It's just a big deal because I think it kind of takes our mind off of what's happening in people dying, people getting sick.
But Arias says while the virus continues to spread, it's great seeing the community helping animals.
It just makes all of us feel really terrific. I mean, it's just phenomenal and so heartwarming to see that level of support from the community.
But Fajera and Pierce say Coco has had just as a positive effect on them.
Honestly, she's bringing us so much joy.
Yeah.
Grace Morris, Elon Local News.
If you are interested in fostering a dog or cat, you can find all available animals on Burlington Animals Services website, as well as any forms needed for your new furry friend.
And Baylor, I know that you're in Florida. Do you have any pets down there with you right now?
I don't know. My one dog is back up home in New Jersey and missing her dearly. But I should be home relatively soon, so looking to see her furry little
Oh, well,
face.
she's probably missing you too. I know my dogs are so excited to have everybody home all the time. So that's so sad. I feel bad for her, but it's all right. It'll be good.
We'll get through it. We'll get through it. There's more important things going on right now. But listen, that's all the news we have for you today. So thanks so much for tuning in.
For all the news you need to know and the latest on the coronavirus affecting Elon, make sure to check out our website, elonnewsnetwork.com.
And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms at Elon News Network.
Stay safe and have a great night, Elon.